So today, we're going to jump into the unique and, let's be honest, pretty metaphorical worldview presented by the online channel United Glory. We're going to break down their core beliefs, what they call spiritual experiences, and their ultimate vision for the world, using their own language to really get a handle on how they see things.
You can tell right from the jump the language they use is, well, it's different. This quote really sets the stage for a belief system that doesn't just look at a reality beyond the ordinary, it dives headfirst into it. It's a place followers are invited to step into completely. So what does this system actually look like?
Here's the plan for our explainer. First, we'll look at the foundation, this whole new way of seeing. Then we'll get into the actual experiences of what they call glory. After that, we'll explore their idea of spiritual warfare, see how it connects to the world of business and finance, and finally, we'll wrap up with their vision for the endgame, the prophesied harvest.
Okay, so everything in this worldview, and I mean everything, starts with a call to completely change your perception. The very first step is to adopt a totally new, supernatural way of seeing, one that goes way beyond our normal human senses.
This new perception has a name, Enoch's eyes, and it's not just about, having a new perspective on things. It's described as a completely different mode of seeing, almost like getting a software update for your eyes that lets you see the world through what the source calls the eyes of Christ. And this new vision, it comes at a price. To get it, followers are told they have to sacrifice their old conventional sight, and that means both their natural and their spiritual eyesight. They're told to burn it on the altar. And what do they get in return? They're promised this new way of seeing, one that's guided by what the source calls angelic power.
Look, this new way of seeing isn't just some mental trick or an intellectual exercise. It's presented as the actual gateway into a totally new reality, one that's packed with tangible, direct, supernatural encounters. So that leads us right to the next part. What does it actually feel like to live inside this new reality? The source material describes it in one word: experiencing glory.
This quote, right here, it really gets to the core of that experience. It's called a drunken glory revival, and it's framed as this intoxicating, joyful, overwhelming spiritual encounter, fueled by what they literally call wine from heaven. Now, according to the source, this glory shows up in some really specific ways. We're talking about believers having visions, receiving prophetic words, feeling physically electrified, or even having encounters in these celestial realms. But maybe one of the most distinct experiences they talk about is something called angelic possession.
Now hold on, because that word possession is key here. It's not framed as a negative, demonic thing like you might think. Instead, it's presented as the ultimate team-up with angels. In this state, a believer is said to be completely taken over by angels for a very specific job, to powerfully confront the world and, as the source puts it, torment people into righteousness.
So all of these intense spiritual experiences, they're not just for personal growth. They're actually seen as training, as preparation for a direct conflict. This worldview has a really clear sense of an ongoing spiritual war being fought against some very specific dark forces out in the world.
This quote really lays out the stakes. The belief is that there's this powerful spiritual entity which they call the beast, and it's not some abstract idea of evil. No, it's actively present, right here on Earth, and its mission is to wage war against believers. So this table breaks down the different enemies believers are told to identify and fight, and it's a really wide range. You've got purely spiritual things like the beast, but it also includes worldly systems, like secular authorities they call tyrants, and even established religions that they see as denying true spiritual power.
And this is a really crucial point. All of this, the internal experiences, the spiritual battles, that's not the end goal. It all serves a much bigger purpose: to completely transform the physical world. And a key battlefield for making that happen? The marketplace.
Which brings us to a really key application of all these spiritual ideas. The mission isn't just spiritual. It's about extending this divine authority into the economy, with the goal of turning the marketplace into a domain of the kingdom. And they make a very direct connection between spiritual faithfulness and financial reward. They interpret a biblical parable to promise frankly, a massive 1,000% return on investment for the follower who uses their talents correctly in the business world. The source material even lays out a clear 3-step path to get this dominion. Step 1, sell your talents to the world and make money. Step 2, circulate that wealth in a way they frame as giving to the poor. And Step 3, the ultimate reward: you get to rule over cities.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it?
In this worldview, business isn't just about making a living. It's the main vehicle for achieving the ultimate spiritual goal, which is to inherit and rule the nations.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. You take the new vision, the experience of glory, the spiritual warfare, the kingdom marketplace. Where is it all headed? It's all building toward one ultimate prophesied event, a global transformation that they call the harvest.
So here it is, the end game vision. We're talking a billion-soul harvest across the globe, a massive transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous, and the final establishment of God's rule over every single nation. For them, this is the ultimate fulfillment of the Great Commission, the biblical command to spread the faith everywhere. All right, so we've just walked through the entire framework of this one very specific worldview. But it kind of leaves us with a bigger question, right? As we see more of these detailed prophetic belief systems popping up online, what does that tell us about our collective search for direct experience, for spiritual power, and maybe most of all, for some kind of certainty in a world that feels more and more chaotic?